All right, welcome to an edition of Off Topic, courtesy of backsportspage.com. We are live on YouTube and on Facebook, and you can find us on all your social media podcasts at facebook.com, at Twitter at backsportspage, and of course on Instagram, backsportspage. The show today brought to you by our good friends over at Level One Games in Pompton Plains, New Jersey, Route 23 South. Go to level1games.com, your all-purpose game store. Hey, you're still home in the quarantine? Got board games, video games, card games. They have everything over at Level One Games. Check it out with M, Cynthia, and Tim at level1games.com. Go there now, take your game to the next level, and relive your past. All right. So, first time on the new system here, going a little live on YouTube and on Facebook. Check us out, backsportspage.com/off-topic for past episodes. Had some great guests, but now we're going to change it up, go a little video-wise, and why not do our first show and welcome back a great friend of mine, of ours, and I can't tell you how much this person has helped me in my career in the world of sports since the day I started. Let's welcome in from Malka Sports Group, Pat Capra. Pat, what is up, my brother? How is the quarantine treating you, my friend?
Ooh, we are live, Randy. Randy Zellea. Yes. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, listen, thanks for coming on. I see that, we were joking around before we came on about how much I'm shilling Back Sports Page by having it in the corner and having the logo here on the little ticker on the bottom. But you're shilling also.
Of course.
You're shilling also.
I never miss an opportunity to shill Randy. But the hat, typically wouldn't necessarily wear the hat, but the hair is, as you can imagine, quarantine hair is not great for the long-term image. But anyway, so yeah, the hair, but the Malka Sports bunker sign, courtesy of my daughter Riley. She's 10 years old, and the first day of working from home, I said, I'm headed down to the bunker. And so next thing I know, she comes down with this sign. And what started off as a joke has become quite real. We are kicking off the days, I say, like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption in my cell. And we are at day 69 today, Randy. Day 69. So almost 70 days down here. It's remarkable.
But how does that work for what you do? Because you're in the thick of things. You're on the front line as far as athletes are concerned, and negotiating contracts and having clients that you have to take care of. So how does that affect you, and how does that change your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, it's a good question, and what I'm curious for so many people that are not even interested in what I do, right? Like I get intrigued by how other businesses are operating during this time, right? And so I always say first when people ask how I'm doing, two things: I'm healthy and I'm employed. So anything else is just an inconvenience, and we'll be fine and we'll deal with that, right? There's some industries that we have friends in and family that just don't have a shot, right? They don't even have a chance to try and succeed during this time because of that industry. In sports and the business of sports, what's interesting is, some of the areas have just kind of continued to chug along. It was fascinating doing free agency, NFL free agency during this time. Candidly, I was really frustrated that it was still happening. Early on, I just felt like there were so many people that were being put in difficult positions. And, I thought the NFL and NFLPA would probably come to some sort of delay in the free agency, and a lot of people were put in very uncomfortable and difficult positions. But as is always the case, you make the best of it and work through that. And then, we had the NFL draft, which again, the NFL just keeping the foot on the gas, continue to move forward. I know the execution of the draft was hailed, and a lot of people thought very highly of it. And so I thought it was, again, I thought so many people behind the league, making the best of a tough situation. Once the decision was made to go forward with it, I think everybody did the best they could. And just lastly, I would say to that standpoint, there's so many guys around the country that had their pro days canceled, and that's such a huge opportunity for them. And that was out of everyone's control, and it was the right decision to do so. But you have so many guys who also missed out on the opportunity at tryouts, as you know, Randy, from working with the Giants so many years and going to their training camp. Once the draft happens, you then have that next layer of guys that get, brought in for tryouts and mini camps, and 10, 20, 30 guys maybe per club, if not more, to work out to try and, make the team. And I feel like those opportunities were needed even more so because so many of those fringe guys lost out on their pro day to physically impress that last step. So it's interesting. Again, so long answer short, some of everything is still staying exactly the same, and others we've had to adapt and change. And fortunately, we're built to do so. So we're grateful.
Especially like you just said with free agency, where players are able to go to other facilities, and not only can the teams look at them, but the players can check out the team and see if it's really the right place to go. How much did that hurt, not just your clients, but do you think that hurt a lot of possible deals around the league?
I don't know. It's tough to say. I think ultimately teams, you did have some situations where guys with injury histories, there was hesitation about whether or not a team was going to commit to that player or sign them. There was a variety of, again, as this was new to teams, it was new to players, it was new to agents, the PA, et cetera. And so we were watching everything extremely closely, including the language that was being put into these contracts as it relates to physicals and how that money would affect signing bonus and when they're paid and that sort of stuff. So I don't think, if teams wanted a guy, they could go and sign him if they were confident they were going to help their team, but you did see a handful of situations around the league, guys with injury histories that perhaps, maybe didn't sign as quickly or even are still out there that are waiting to bide their times before they sign with teams. But I think those are more so your situations that stand out. I think guys that were healthy, had end of year physicals were healthy. If the team thought they were going to be able to help them, they would make a move. I don't think it really held too many people back.
Help the audience out here about as far as your job and being an agent, a registered agent in the NFL, and negotiating deals with GMs. What's it like going in and communicating with the GM as far as working out a deal? Not the details of a deal, obviously, but the communication you need to have with teams. Are you immediately in contact with the GM? How does the communication start, and can you go over the process?
Yeah, so every situation is different, but there's just communication, that you have year round with teams, right? Because there's the cycle of, you're recruiting and signing kids that are going to go into the draft. So you're reaching out to teams on their behalf at all times, right? And then that circle of, you have guys that are active in the league. So you're communicating with the front offices of those teams of which your players play for. And then when free agency cycles around, you're creating then, those conversations to try and get landing spots for your guys. I think, really it starts with just understanding and doing your homework of teams' needs versus what you have, right? So that you're selling something that is in demand. And so I think kind of that's what's important first, is to understand that landscape of team needs and make sure that you're appropriately, putting forth. But in terms of communication, there's all different levels of communication. There's a lot of times just directly with the GM, and then there's also the pro personnel coordinator, and then there's, the contract negotiator, right? And so oftentimes when people think Team X, they think, oh, you're going back and forth with the GM, and really it's the contract negotiator with the team. And each team has a designated contract negotiator, right, that handles the salary cap and knows, where the stopgaps are with the salary to understand where they can and can't go. So it's not always just directly the general manager that you're dealing with.
Randy Zellea here with Pat Capra here on Off Topic. Pat, obviously this whole pandemic has sort of put a damper on the sports industry as far as the everyday activity. Talk about the other part of the industry that you and I love so much, as far as the fundraising, the events that we like to do, and being able to be out in the community. How does this obviously affect that, as far as obviously events have been canceled, but you being an agent and also in that sense a promoter for these foundations, how do you approach it now?
It's a great question. Actually, let me make sure, Randy, this is a Kalo here. I want to make sure, as I realized that when I looked at, got a white can, I don't want you to think I'm drinking any sort of alcoholic beverage. Would never do that on your show.
I appreciate that.
It's not true. Maybe I would.
Do I owe Kalo money now? Does that because I like an official sponsor? I don't know. Like,
you know what? I want Kalo to give me money, or you send me some free product. Hemp infused seltzer, Randy, drink of the summer here. But no, it's interesting because as you know, we work in a variety of different things. We have 4 pillars that we, service that we offer. Obviously, contract being first and foremost, but then your branding, your marketing, and your legacy. And legacy really stems into helping guys with post-career from a business standpoint, but also helps them from a philanthropic and nonprofit initiative. And, we've crossed paths. He's been a great supporter of ours over the years, and we're, always grateful for you helping us spread the word on these cool initiatives that we're doing. And so the marketing has taken an interesting, turn, because there's companies that are, holding entirely. There's companies that are trying to get out of, their deals. The holding people are holding on to try and figure out what is this season going to look like, right? The language in these contracts are starting to adjust to where, this is a prorated contract based on the number of games, or are we scaling back? There's different things that get added to the contracts in addition to name and likeness and image for endorsement. There's the in-store appearances, or appearances at different events, et cetera. And what are those going to look like? So I think some of it's still uncertain. We've been engaged with a number of the league partners, and a lot of them are at different stages of their advancement. It also depends on what industry they're in, right? Are they still able to operate in their own? And then there's other brands from a marketing standpoint that we're working with who might even be struggling during this time, right? And sometimes building up goodwill with them is the right thing to do, because, you keep them in the conversation and you really strengthen that relationship. If someone's going to help you when it's not necessarily in your advantageous to you financially, but you're still willing to go help them out, that really builds trust in a relationship. And I always think it's really important to build that for long-term wins, right? There's never any guarantee that when the lights go back on, so to speak, that partner is going to all of a sudden turn to you as the face of their program. But they'll remember, just like I think across the board, everyone from a business standpoint, every consumer will remember the people that did it right and the people that did it wrong, whether that's price gouging or tone-deaf ads. People are going to remember the mistakes that get made as well. So again, going back to that, there's, interesting things from the marketing side and the branding side. And then specifically, as you ask about the nonprofit side, one thing that we've seen is, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I'm not sure if you saw the news yesterday, but we work with Jason and Devin McCourty for the Patriots, handling all their off-field initiatives, including their Tackle Sickle Cell campaign and all their marketing endorsement. And they were just named a finalist for the Muhammad Ali Sports Humanitarian Award.
Wow. Okay.
For the ESPYs. So one of 4 finalists there. So really, really unbelievable and deserving honor. But as an example, we were able to produce a virtual online fundraiser for them. They were going to, bottom line, up in Boston, a nonprofit that supports, students in education, and many of whom are the first in their families to graduate. And they had this big fundraiser that the McCourty twins were going to host. 900 people were supposed to attend. An amazing event for a great organization. And they were at first going to cancel it, then decided to see if they could do it online. The twins still hosted, and, Malka was able to do all the live stream production. And it was really cool to get to, kind of share that night where you honor all these different graduates. And the twins all dressed up in tuxedos, even though they were in the,
of course they did.
Evan's in his nursery, his kid's nursery, Jay's in his kitchen, but they were all dressed up, and it was really, really cool. So from a fundraising standpoint, look, there's challenges for sure, right? But the virtual online fundraisers are completely tangible options. They're far less expensive than the big galas that can be held, right? And so there's challenges, but again, that's just nothing new. I think, whatever it is, you got to try and adjust and stay relevant and top of mind. So that's what we've been able to do.
And it's funny too. You say that with Devin and Jason, who have done some amazing events over the years between the bowling events in New York City, the casino nights, both down at Rutgers and out in Massachusetts, the football camps that they produce every single year. They've always been not only doing a great job participating, but also just every facet of it, being able to be communicating with their guests, the kids, and just wanting to be involved. The two great guys and two champions. I guess Jason wanted to catch up to Devin and try and get a ring, so he found a way to make it over there to New England with them.
Not a bad idea getting on that squad.
Yeah.
And Jay ended up probably having did have the biggest defensive play of the game. Turning point, knocking away that potential touchdown there in the end zone. So, dude, those guys, I could go on and on about how great they are. They're two of the, best humans I've ever met. Kevin Malice, who's our vice president of talent, great guy, super tight with the Twins. He's played in high school. I'm sorry, not in high school, in college with them, as well as the pros, and now he handles their off-field stuff. He has a great line, Kev. He says, we just want everybody to know the McCourties like we do, right? Because if you get to know them, you absolutely love them.
Yeah, you love them.
That's our job, right? Is to get them in front of different audiences and different people, because as they with this event I told you about the other day with Bottom Line, the answers that they were given in the Q&A session were like, each one of them was gold that these kids could hang on to, and they weren't mailing it in whatsoever. And so they're just they're genuine guys. They just did recently, Chromebooks for kids was a thing to digital divide where they're from in Nyack, New York. And again, that was their idea. This isn't, us always crafting these ideas from a marketing or business standpoint. Oftentimes they'll just come to us with different ideas, and then we'll figure out how to execute them, what the best decision and best process is. These are genuine dudes, man. They're special.
We're going to transition a little bit. Want to talk about you. I know you're not a very big of a self promoter, but your story is very, very. I don't want to say it's a storybook, but like you put a lot of work in, and you paid a lot of dues. You and I started. You started as an intern with the New York Giants back in the Jim Fossil days, and a lot of people today who are Giants fans, the casual fan doesn't even know who Jim Fossil is, doesn't even remember him. But you started with the Giants and then worked your way up and learned every facet of the industry. How important is it now for younger people to sort of get their hands in every dynamic of the industry to sort of understand the whole thing?
That's funny, Randy. You mentioned Jim Fossil. I haven't thought about this in forever, but so Jim Fossil, if you recall, he had that big press conference, right? As the Giants, he said, put the target on me. I'm pushing all my chips to the table. I'm all in. He was, and that was a big press conference moment for him. He's like, stop sniping about his players, put all the target on him. It's on him. He's pushing his chips to the table, and he was all fired up, right? And I was a production intern. I was a production assistant, so the lowest guy in the totem pole, doing anything and everything from bagels and coffee to hanging lights and building the studio and this, that, the other, whatever was asked of me. But we had interviewed Jim in the morning as part of our show with Mike Francesa. And so he interviewed him, right? And then he left, and he just gave his standard, interview. And then a couple hours later, he has his press conference interview, and he's all hot. And literally he walks out of that press conference, right? Walks into the tunnel. Now he hasn't seen anybody. He literally just left immediately, and he's hot, and his eyes are all lit up and everything. And he's walking right at me. And I didn't even know what had just happened, right? And I just said to him, I said, hey, coach, good interview, referencing the interview like 2 hours earlier, like a, low-key interview. And he grabbed me by the neck, and he grabbed my neck, and he massaged. He's like, you like that, son? Did you like that? Like, he was like a madman. I was like, the interview wasn't that great. I was like, yeah, that was great. And like, literally almost gave me like a pinched nerve. He was crazed, he was so juiced up. And then later come to find out that the reason he was so jacked up was like he just, gave this fiery, emotional speech. And then the Giants ended up, making their Super Bowl run and everything. So I apologize. I hadn't thought about that in forever since you just mentioned his name. How important is it to get involved with anything and everything? I think it's super important. At the end of the day, you want to be able to offer skills, right, and offer value. And so whatever that is, whether it's an internship or whether it's a job and you're just starting out, like, don't just say, I want to do what you do. You need to offer value day one. When we think back to, that internship with the Giants, I got that internship not because I knew somebody, but I started a basketball show, like a half-an-hour show called CBA Colts Roundup, went to Christian Brothers Academy for my junior and senior year of high school. And I started CBA Colts Roundup and did a TV show for 2 years. So I had to be self-taught on all the equipment, from the cameras, the editing, the lighting. I literally set everything up. We wrote the shows, did it all, edited everything. Did it for 2 years, and then 4 years in college, broadcasting, television, radio. So when I got that internship, I was ready. I had done 6 years, on the equipment, and knew anything and everything. Even though my goal was to eventually be on camera, I wanted to be a broadcaster at the time. I knew everything that I possibly had to know. So, getting your hands dirty and learning about everything is important. When I later worked with the Nets, I knew I wasn't going to stay at the Nets forever. And I wanted to get a holistic understanding of the organization and how it all works. So I'd spend, time meeting with, different people and just talking to them and learning about their jobs and how game day operations works and PR and marketing and sponsorships. And, probably spent more time than my guy, Freddie, my boss, would have liked, doing some other things other than just sales. But I just thought it was important to kind of grow and learn, and who better to learn from than people doing their jobs.
No, definitely. And you heard my Jordan story. I don't know if I need to go back into it, but I want to give you another great story. Also, we were sitting there. This was during the 92, 93. Yeah, when I was an intern there, you were in sales, and I remember one day Eddie Jordan came upstairs, and I'm like, Eddie Jordan came upstairs, and he and Michael Korn, he called Tamara, who was the other intern, and I. Guys, come on down to the gym. I'm saying, like, oh, did I say something? What did I do? Like, I don't know. I felt like I was in trouble. I don't know. For some reason, I don't know why. I go down to the gym, and Kerry Kittles is there, and Brian Scalabrine is there. And they're just shooting around. And they look at us, and they say, Randy, do you have a set of gym clothes in the car? I do. Go get it on. I'm like, okay. I'm like, wouldn't Aaron and, Andrew want to know?
Yeah.
Like, no, don't worry about them. Don't worry about it. All right. Tamara's sitting there with her shorts on, and then she has all of her stuff with her. Like, I didn't know. And all of a sudden we're playing like a little pickup game. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing with NBA players. I'm going to get killed. That was my first response. I'm going to get killed. And I like those, but like you just said, like, but just learning so much. Like, first, my first thing was, I'm never going to become an NBA player. That was my first thing that I learned. But
is there any footage of you and Zoran Planinic anywhere?
No, thank God. Thank God. Well, I will tell you it's something that there is footage of. There is footage of it out there. When I was in high school, I played against Tim Thomas. Patterson Catholic versus Glen Rock High School. I want you to picture out how that really worked out. Okay.
I would appreciate it if you wouldn't mind. I think anyone who's listening, watching, or following you would be grateful for any sort of still image or moving image, little video of Tim Thomas putting it on you would be delightful. Or I shouldn't even assume. Maybe you put it on Tim. I shouldn't assume like that.
Yeah, first off, you don't even have to imagine. We already know how that turned out, all right? We already know how that turned out. But I just remember when I was interning with the Nets, from PR, and then the following year working with the NBA for NBA Entertainment, working from the video side of it. And then when I was in Florida, living down there for a year, doing some work with ESPN Radio down in Florida, and then coming back and starting to write. It pays off to dip your toe in every facet. And so now I have this really great staff with Back Sports Page. Obviously the video side and the audio side has been advanced since the days when I was doing it. But like if you would have told me 10 years ago I'd be able to do what I'm doing now with you, you'd be sitting in your basement and I'd be sitting in my basement having this conversation via video on a computer. We've really grown.
Yep.
We've really grown, but I think the opportunity, that's the one thing that you and I could probably both agree with. The opportunities are few and far between because everybody wants to do it. And I think that's the most important thing. If someone offers you the opportunity to cover high school basketball, don't look at it as, oh my God, I got to go cover high school basketball. Look at it as, I'm going to be the best person to cover this high school basketball game. So that people can see that I'm willing to do absolutely anything to move ahead.
So like, yeah. And here's the thing. I am an eternal optimist, right? So like occasionally I might just throw you a cliche, right? That is draped in optimism. But like, to me, I don't think of like the opportunities are limited and few and far between, right? Like success looks different for everybody. And so for me, I wanted a job when I grew up. I wanted a job that I loved. I grew up single parent household. My mom would work 2 and 3 jobs. She's literally, everything I could ever have wanted, in a role model growing up. Right. But at the same time, I saw her, just, going to a job that was also sucking life out of her. Right. And so she was doing it because she had no other option. She had 3 kids and she was going to take care of us. And so it was so admirable. But I learned as much as I learned about, what work ethic was and integrity and all these, great values as a child to learn from a parent. I also was like, you know what? I want to find a job that I love, that I can be excited about, that I can put time into in hours. But when I come home, I'm happy. And I can't wait to go back. Right. Cliche of, your Monday and Friday should feel the same. If you have a job that you love, your Monday and Fridays feel the same. And mine do. So all that to be said, my goal was always to have a job that I loved. Right. It wasn't like my goal was I need to make $50, $80, $100,000. Right. Because my thought was, if I do something that I love, the money will come. Right. Okay. I'll find my passion. I'll be good at it. I'll be so excited. I'll put more of my effort into it, and I'll eventually, get to where I want to be financially. But along the way, I'm happy and I'm fulfilled. Right. So for me, that's an important thing and the idea of there aren't necessarily a lot of opportunities. It depends what you're looking for. And for me, I started my company when I was 25 years old, right? I quit the New Jersey Nets to start my own company. Now, I wouldn't recommend that as like, what's the path to success? Quit at 25 in an industry you know nothing about and do your own thing, right? That's not necessarily the recommended path. Yeah. But it's just to tell you that like I could have gone and worked for another agency, right? I certainly could have gone and cut my teeth and did that, but I did my own entire thing. So the idea that there's, all these jobs, that are waiting for you, or that there's nothing in between, like, I think it's different for everyone. And for me, if it wasn't there, I was going to create it. I wasn't just going to blindly send my, resume into all these different agencies when I knew I already had athlete relationships, which is the most valuable thing that you can have in, in this industry. I had the relationships, I had the trust, I built a network. So I decided to do my own thing. So again, while there might not be, 1,000 jobs waiting for everybody as soon as they graduate college, find your own way, find your niche, offer value, network, build, and also it might not look like a job working for somebody else. It might be doing what you did, Randy. You also, Back Sports Page, this is something that you built out. And, you should, feel proud of what you've created, and all the people that you continue to help. I know that on top of all the awesome things that you're doing, so much of your pride comes from the fact that you're helping mentor, the next generation of people that want to get into your industry too. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that too, because I know that you and I have been on a couple different panels recently. We did a Zoom one with Rick Lachlan, and Rick Lachlan hosted one at FDU a couple months ago, back in November. and you were on stage with Chris Canty and Emery Hunt and the girls from the XFL. And, how does it feel for you to be in front of those kids and giving your advice and giving them the knowledge that you have gained over the years? How important is it for you to give back?
I love doing those things, because I remember being a student that was going to them. Like, dude, I went to a sports broadcasting camp when I was 15 years old. It's one of the nerdiest things in the world, right? Like, it's like a Dungeons and Dragons camp. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
I was going to say, not that there's anything wrong with that whatsoever,
yeah.
But,
but like, the idea was I was like 15, 16 years old, and I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, and Bill Raftery was hosting this camp, right?
Bill Raftery. Wow. There's a name for the best.
Bill Raftery and Jerry Eisenberg. Two of the very, very best. And, I went and had an awesome experience. I interviewed Chuck Daly, like I literally had to sit down one-on-one with Chuck Daly, like, to the dream team head coach, you know what I mean? At that event. Now, I had a 5-minute sit down one-on-one interview with him, learned a ton of cool stuff. But from that camp, right, I then was like, wow, I don't have to wait. I can start doing things right away. I learned all this different stuff. And when I went to CBA 3 months later for camp or for school, I started that TV show, right? And that TV show I did in high school helped me get into Ithaca, because definitely my grades weren't the best, But as my guy Mike Waltoff says, C's get degrees. But because I did this show, right, I was able to help get me into college at Ithaca. And once I was at Ithaca, then I had all these broadcasting opportunities. And once I was there, that made me relevant for, the Giants opportunity. So the reason why I love doing those things is I remember being that kid who came in there just looking for a few ideas from someone on a panel or someone to give me the time of day or build a relationship with. And it all started from when I was 15 or 16 years old, however old I was that summer, going to that thing. So that's why I love, like, I'm grateful if you ask me to come on here, someone wants to hear me talk about what I do. Shoot, that's easy, man. And I'm grateful for the people that gave me their time. And it's, I feel like it's only the right thing to do to come back and help other people with it.
I want to transition just to like the landscape of what's going on in the sports world today. Talk to me about the future of sports right now. We're talking about empty stadiums. We're talking about empty arenas. The NBA attempting to come back. They're talking about a possible date of June 1st, a possible announcement, or even be back. The NHL, not 100% sure. UFC is having empty arena events. WWE and AEW are broadcasting live, but without audiences. How do you see it, and how important is it for a country and for a fan base to sort of have that thing to distract them from all this right now?
Well, I think distraction would be really nice. I know I could go for more sports. But it's just interesting. And these are the conversations I'm having every day, just about each level, what's appropriate, what's not, right? I think everyone agrees, that science is playing a huge part of all this, and leaning on the medical community to, make best recommendations before you move forward. But at the same time, I think you have a whole country of people who are looking to, break out. And people are in different stages, right, of like urgency and stress and anxiety and different stuff, right? So everyone's at different levels. Sports is the fun stuff, man. I love that the UFC is back. I was really impressed with the execution of it. I certainly, as someone who watches that sport and involved with it on some levels, was skeptical and nervous, but hopeful at the same time. And everybody came out of it seemingly. There was obviously a scare with Jacare and him testing positive, and with a few of his cornermen as well, I believe, or trainers. But other than that, I think everything went well, and it seems like everything, other than that, was controlled, right? It wasn't spread. So I don't know, man. I watched all 3 UFC events. I'm sure I wasn't alone. People were just looking for anything to watch, and I'm a huge fan of the product. I love MMA. So hopefully, baseball will follow back up. I think it's important. It's important for entertainment and normalcy and cracks of light that are coming in to give hope that we're getting a little bit closer to back to normal.
Do you think it'd be a little weird I'm going to use the NBA as an example. Obviously, I covered the Giants, but the NBA is always my first love. Do you think it'd be weird to see an NBA game with no fans in the stands?
Yeah, I do. But I think technology and innovation, will win the day. I think ultimately, the game itself, it'll be weird at first, but it eventually will just become normal, right? And you'll adjust to it. I haven't been watching much, but I did see a lot early on when WWE went to, no fans. And then I believe, I heard somebody saying that they were starting to change camera angles, right, on some of it. And I did see something recently. It looked like they had backlit differently, the other areas. So, people that work in the television and production business will figure out how to get around that. I think if you told me I could have no NBA or NBA with no fans, hell yes, I'm going NBA with no fans. Hell yes. So we'll figure that out. There's far worse things. It'll be different. It'll be unique. But yeah, I'm curious how, teams will try and replace that revenue. The sponsors in arena and in stadium, how those folks who advertise will either have some make goods or how the team will have to get creative and, offer some additional value to replace what they're getting in arena and in stadium. So I'm curious to watch it all. I'm also curious to find the answers first or collaborate with other folks in the business to try and find some answers too.
Well, it's funny. Before we even had a pandemic, Minnesota, and even when the Nets were in New Jersey, they were performing in front of without fans for years. But the only difference is there was actually tickets on sale. So
look at this guy cutting down the netties.
It's true.
Kittles, Lucius Harris. Those are the days. Jay Kidd's run those 2 years with the Nets when they went back-to-back finals was as good as any point guard I've ever seen play. He was amazing.
Oh, he was the best. And Pat, like you were in the ticket office at that point in time. And we're not knocking Freddie. We're not knocking any of the people who work there. I'm not knocking you. But how do you have a team that wins 52 wins the first year that Jason's there? And then again, I think there was 48 the second season.
Yep.
And was it, in your opinion, like this is my opinion, and this is all that it is. You can react to what I'm about to say, but was it maybe we weren't reacting because we're in the New York market, we're on the outskirts of New York, and people were thinking, well, if we keep those prices up here, people can afford it. But whereas in New Jersey, you have more of you have two people making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, spending $45 a ticket to sit in the upper level is not something we want to do every single game. So I felt like it was a little bit of a too high of a price for consistency for the New Jersey fan base.
I think it was crappy sales guys like myself, who couldn't move product. I always think like the NBA, it's a tough ticket to move because it's 41 games, right? And so obviously as a sales rep, your bulk of your money, you want to sell full seasons, then half seasons, and then the mini plans. And so our goal is always full season. And, I had New York that year. So I actually ended up doing very, very well because the Knicks went in the tank and still in the tank since then. And the Nets got really, really good. So we had people that were coming from New York that did want to go to the game. But I can tell you early on, I was mocked when I would call, New York because they're like, oh, we got a real team here in the city. Who wants to go there? So, it's tough because you were competing with that New York market. And, again, 41 games is a lot to go to. You're giving away a lot.
You were handcuffed, right? Because that was when the Devils took over, and they were like, no more comp tickets, and so that's why it like sort of like flattened out a little bit. I remember there was a game against the Sonics when Jason first got there, and you would think, Gary Payton and team that makes the playoffs. There's only 9,000 fans in a 20,000 seat arena. The place looked like it was empty. So it was rough, man. That was really rough. But like, and then when they played the Knicks, all the Knicks fans come out. So, that was always very, very interesting.
I love it. Yo, by the way, it was one of the best times of my life working for the Nets. Perfect example, right? Like, of loving what you do. Like, man, I'm in a tech circle today with Fisher and Deso and Waltoff. Literally today, guys I used to work at the Nets with 20 years ago. I was on the phone with Freddie just the other day, Fred Mangione, who's
I love Freddie.
I mean, just killing it right now with the Jets. Before the Jets, obviously he was still with the Nets and the COO of the Barclays Center and the Nets. Freddie, one of the best guys ever in the business of sports. And then yesterday, J.M. Capra just got named interim athletic director at Boston College.
Okay.
Cappy was a sales guy with the Nets, and so now J.M.'s up there and is the interim AD in BC. So everybody's all grown up. Everybody's doing well for themselves, and it was an awesome experience. I loved it, man. I love talking to old Netties.
There's
a small window of a chat room somewhere that
well,
would take this.
Before we go on with it, I have to say I remember Ian Eagle when we were in the finals against the Spurs. I remember Ian was not doing any broadcasting. He was off, but he was there, and he shows up with a big thing of popcorn. And I'm watching him take handfuls of popcorn and throw it in his mouth. And Andrew Greenberg looks at me and he goes, "I'm happy for Ian. He finally gets to watch basketball and doesn't have to say anything." But it was just like you said, it was the most enjoyable time. And I really thought we were going to win against the Spurs. I really, in my heart of hearts, I don't have to be politically correct right now. I can say it how I feel. I think if Byron Scott made a couple different coaching decisions, we would have won that game 6. We could have gone to game 7, and you never know what could have happened.
It was competitive, man. It was one of those series that, when a series doesn't go 7 on paper, it's like, it wasn't competitive. But those are some tough games, and those Spurs teams are amazing too.
Oh God, yeah.
It was good. It was good though, man. I loved it.
Well, we just had Bill Land on the Hardwood Huddle podcast that I do. He does the play-by-play for the Spurs, and we were talking about it. And I said to him, like, technically, if the league does not come back and the Spurs make the playoffs next year, their streak still goes because every year they still make the playoffs. But he was talking about Duncan, he was talking about Popovich, and he said, find another way of a coach getting the best of everybody who's from player 1 to player 12 or player 15.
Yep.
Every guy on that team would be able to step in and play in Pop's system. And every team needs to rebuild. I'm not saying the Patriots are going to be rebuilding this year, but I'm saying, it's changing with the times. And now every team has to change with the times. Pat, last question from me. And then obviously I don't want to hold you too long because it is close to chow time for all of us. So in your opinion, I'm going to ask 2 things. One, NFL, will fans be in the stadium for NFL games? That's a big group of people all in one shot.
No.
Okay.
If any, obviously very sporadic, but absolutely not is my opinion. And I'm even more curious what's going to happen with college football because – not more curious. Obviously, I'm super curious about what's going on with the NFL. Affects our livelihood. But I'm more suspect, I guess I would say, of college just because, the NFLPA and the NFL, they can negotiate and come up with an agreeable set of terms that they can operate under. College, you just think about all of the different liability that a university would take on by putting these kids out there to play football, and then God forbid something happens. If you're not going to allow students back to campus, you can't certainly say that it's okay for the football team to come back, right? So it's just I don't know. I'm hoping for the best. I think it's just, if I had to predict, it's going to be a weird truncated season, which would be my guess, but certainly I hope, that we find a vaccine or something and,
On their way into the stadium, all the fans have to take the vaccine, and then we'll be all okay.
Exactly.
And Pat, thanks for giving some time here. I really, really appreciate it. This was fun. We should definitely do this again. And again, really appreciate it. And hopefully we can get back to normal. And I can see the twins and Anthony and everybody fairly soon. And of course, obviously you. And you can see me, Danielle, and the rest of the crew.
Mr. Randy Zellea. Randy, if you want to see Anthony, there he is.
There he is.
He's never far from my heart. Hey, thank you so much, Randy. I appreciate you having this and continued good work. I know you're a great leader for a number of young people trying to get into the business of sports. So continued success, my friend, and thanks for the friendship as always. And happy to hop on and chop it up for 45 minutes. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks for coming on, brother, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy. Be good.
Thank you. The great Pat Capra from Malka Sports. Hey, guys, thanks for joining me here on Off Topic, courtesy of backsportspage.com. Hey, we're on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We are on Google Podcasts. Check us out at backsportspage.com. This show will be broadcasted live every week on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Today, I'm for Facebook, I'm on my account, but most shows will be broadcasting live on the Back Sports Page Facebook account. Hey, check us out on Instagram at Back Sports Page and on Twitter at Back Sports Page. And of course, all of our shows are brought to you by our good friends over at Level One Games in Pompton Plains, New Jersey. Check it out, level1games.com now, the all-purpose game store. Hey, do you like PlayStation, the original PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and of course PlayStation 4? They have everything there. Xbox Live, they have it all. You like board games, card games, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon? They have it at level1games.com. Go there now for all your gaming purpose needs. Relive your past and take your game to the next level at Level One Games. All right. So backsportspage.com, Off Topic. Check us out. And also, I'll be back later in the week on the Hardwood Huddle with me and Bill Ingram. We will be there to continue to go back into the NBA's history and relive some of the best moments in the NBA with the people who went through them themselves. So, again, Randy Zellea, courtesy of Back Sports Page. This is Off Topic. Check us out at backsportspage.com. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you down the road, probably later in the weekend. Have a great Memorial Day, everybody.